our flight was at 6:30, so 4:30, we got there at 4:30, and we get to the gate, and Max started, or not to the gate, we get to the check counter, and Max started freaking out. This was the first thing that bothered me. She's like, we don't have wheelchairs until 5 a.m. And Max is running away, running down, he's grabbing kids. I get up there and Max is not wearing a mask, and she's like, is he not gonna wear a mask? And I'm like, oh no, I have a doctor's note. And I pull it out, and our doctor's note says, due to Max's autism, he may have difficulties wearing a mask. Keeps the mask on, and he keeps this mask on now, mind you, for at least 45 minutes. I'm just sobbing, and people are all around us, the line is now emptying, and I'm like, so what are our options here? And she's like, I don't know. And I'm like, I don't understand. Are you not letting us through to security? And she's like, no, it's on me if he doesn't wear his mask, and I can't trust that he's not gonna wear his mask. I've never been so just helpless. There was literally nothing I could do. And he's like, I touched a plane. We go to the airport, and he's so happy, you guys, so happy. And this one woman had the power in her stupid vision to ruin this entire trip for my family. And she took away this experience from my son that we will never get back. It was the most clear and present example of a disability discrimination that I have ever seen in my life.
Hello everyone. On the occasion of World Autism Awareness Day, we from Autism Connect have got together 3 experts from 3 different continents, that is England, Dubai and Kenya, to create a sensitization and instructional video for the airline flight crew and the ground staff as to what are the needs of these children on the autism spectrum. It is our request to all the airlines to share this video to all your crew so that they develop a better understanding of the requirements of these special needs children. Now, we would like to call upon Miss Malaika Fernandes, who is from England. She is a psychologist. Let's hear her perspective. Yes, Malaika.
Hi, everyone. I think it's important to understand what autism is and what the challenges are before we can get into understand the solutions that we could provide to support individuals and the families who have autism. Autism is a neurodevelopmental difference that affects individuals in the really early years of life, and it will continue to be a part of their life throughout adulthood. It is not an illness and it's not a disease. In the simplest of words, autism is a natural variation in the wiring of an individual's brain. This can impact various aspects of an individual's life, though, and it can impact in ways where how they perceive situations, the way they experience things, the way they feel, how they communicate that, and how they interpret the information that is given to them by others. Even though young people or individuals are diagnosed with autism, they are preferred to be identified as neurodiverse individuals in the community or anywhere where they do not feel labelled. Hence, calling them neurodiverse individuals is more preferable. What it might look like to client-facing crew staff while travelling, while at the airport, while on flights. They may appear confused or might understand part of information or might ask you, or you might watch them asking other people to repeat information several times. And while you repeat the information, you might see them, observe them to interrupt you a lot of times as well. And this is because they struggle with processing information. Secondly, they may appear anxious. You might find them getting really agitated, flustered, sometimes even being rude or having a meltdown where they might just sit down and start crying really loudly. And this is because they're really struggling to communicate their needs and communicate how they feel, because people are not able to understand them. Their needs are not being met. Hence, while traveling, you observe that parents or carers of these young people are usually the ones who speak for them most of the time. You might observe them that when they have to stand in queues, waiting for immigration, checking, boarding, you might observe them to be restless. They start pacing. While traveling, adjustment can be quite a difficult thing. We don't like it. So for somebody who doesn't understand social norms or struggles to understand social norms and the gestures, following the parents to the lavatory or sitting in the laps of carers or parents, touching other people's belongings, getting out of their seat in the middle of the flight and trying to run. These are things that they do not understand, and this is because of their lack and difficulty in understanding social norms and gestures. Another thing to look out for is young people who are neurodiverse can struggle with echolalia. This is a pattern of repetitive speech, questions, or certain commentary phases that they have picked up over the years. And these can be very, very situation-based. These can be very emotion-based as well. And these phrases can sometimes come across as being very inappropriate to a situation. So, for example, while a young person is on a flight and their ears pop or they can't manage the pressure, they might really shout like the plane is going down, or there's turbulence, or there's an attack on the plane. But this is not targeted because of anybody, but this is genuinely how they feel. They do not feel safe. And lastly, stimming. This is when you know that someone is really struggling at that point in time. These are repetitive body movements that are observed to be as flapping their hands, kicking legs, very involuntary body movements that happen. These tend to escalate when they're either stressed out or they're really, really excited, but they're used in order to regulate how they feel. I think by observing and looking out for these signs, this can really inform crew, it can inform the staff that are working on the ground in supporting parents and carers of these neurodiverse young people when they travel with comfort and ease, and just trying to make travel inclusive and accessible to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Malaika. Now we have Pooja Panesar with us. She is a behavioral analyst from Kenya. Let's hear it from her.
Thank you, Dolly. So planning to travel is a task that parents actually take on way before booking a flight. It's a plan that's been made before, and there's a lot of anticipation even when it comes to the actual booking. Including a piece of information in your advertisements indicating that you actually provide accommodations and support for these families can help the family decide to travel with you to start with. The information can also be provided post-booking because parents may book the flights without knowing that you can be helpful. So it's important to let them know initially that you do provide support and you do provide help so that they realize this is available and they can access it and ask for it. Upon booking a flight on your website, you may include an option for parents to select that they will require extra support during, before, or after the flight as well. This helps create a relationship between you and the family even before the flight begins. And you can have a separate section where this can be expanded upon within the website. Basic information like this will alert you before and create that relationship that will help ease anxiety both for the family and for the crew on the day. Upon booking, the other thing that's possible is you could provide a downloadable document that provides tips for parents along with ways that you will ease the process. so that they know how to prepare better. Not all parents know how to do this to start with, so you providing some information can ease the process. And also by alerting them on what availability of resources you have available, they can organize themselves accordingly. Anxiety is very common in neurodiverse people and their families especially. This is more so when a change is anticipated. Changes in the environment, changes in routine create anxiety. So having an allowance for families to have a practice run, a practice trip either to the airport where they can come with the child and slowly desensitize the child, or even allowing them to take the parents to take a few photographs and to aid the creation of a social story, can help alleviate this anxiety on the day of travel. This makes the environment more familiar so that all the unknowns that are usually huge factors in the behavioral difficulties are eased. For many of us, keeping a mask on, especially during a long flight during the pandemic, is difficult. So there may need to be some accommodations made for those with the sensory issues on keeping a mask on for a whole long flight. During check-in, priority tags can be offered on luggage of these families so that once they've been through the whole travel situation, they have a quick exit on the other side. Flights can also offer a brief information video, similar to what you normally have as the safety video, on neurodiverse people, what to be aware of, and how to accommodate them on flights to sensitize passengers in case there is someone on board. It doesn't have to be done only when there is a passenger with neurodiverse needs, but even in general, it can help create awareness across the globe. Awareness goes a long way in reducing everybody's anxiety. Passengers on the plane may also need this reassurance in case they get nervous. There might be a neurodiverse person experiencing a meltdown or having difficulties, like Malaika talked about, needing to walk up and down. And just having them reassured will ease that tension as well for the family. In case there is a situation where a child is having a meltdown, maybe there's been some turbulence, it's important for the crew to keep checking in with the family and ensure that they have what they need, but also give them the space that they require. If everyone starts crowding in to say, how can we help? That could trigger more emotions as well. So as I mentioned, parents can be very nervous traveling, especially if it's the first time, especially if they're alone with a neurodiverse child. You can ask them on a regular basis if they need anything, and also reassure them that, hey, everything's going really well, you're doing great, you did a great job preparing for everything. Being a stigmatized population, making the plane a safe space will relax them. And if the parents and caregivers are relaxed, the child will relax as well. So to conclude, traveling with neurodiverse people and their families is teamwork. You are part of that team, and you can make each family's travel experience a pleasant one. Thank you.
So true and well said, Pooja. Thank you so much. So here we have with us today Miss Rabab Kothari. She's an occupational therapist from Dubai. So Rabab, we would really like to know, what do you think should the airline flight crew and the ground staff know about the needs of these children on the autism spectrum?
So Dolly, today 1 out of every 59 children are diagnosed to have autism, and these children have to travel across the globe for newer treatments. So your question is very relevant to ask. So going ahead, I am going to divide this video into two components. First, what can be done on the airport and what can be done inside the aircraft. First thing is, when you enter the airport is a check-in counter, and these check-in counters usually have long lines. The problem is, when the child has autism, it is impossible for them to wait in these long queues. When the parent approaches the check-in counter and informs them the child has an autism spectrum disorder, they should be given priority check-ins. After the check-in comes the security and the immigration. During immigration, some airports require a physical pat-down. The problem is, the child who is an autism spectrum disorder can have sensory issues. So a touch by a stranger can have a negative response to such situations. The solution is the physical pat down should be avoided, but if required by the local authorities, can be done under the supervision of a parent with their help and support, which can help this process to become more easier. Once the security is done, there is usually a long gap between boarding the flight and the security. Also, there can be flight cancellations, flight delays, or long wait periods for these children who have sensory issues. For them to regulate, there can be a provision of a sensory room. A sensory room can be made with like light bubbles, dimmable lights, soft play areas, which can help them regulate themselves and calm themselves when there is an overwhelming situation around. So during the boarding process, pregnant women, women who have small infants in their hands, people or wheelchair are given priority boarding. Our suggestion is to include children with autism spectrum disorder into this category, as they find it difficult to wait in the line. Now, since we are done with the airport, comes the main part. What are the difficulties faced by the children who have autism spectrum disorder inside the aircraft? So, as mentioned earlier, these children should be given front row seats because they have this tendency of kicking and hitting the front seats, which can get very inconvenient to the person sitting in front of them. That is why it is necessary to give them the front row seats, which can help them solve a lot of problems. These children are very sensitive to hearing. During takeoff, landing, there can be changes in the pressure which can have ear popping. Also, the sound of the engine, the sound of the overhead baggage moving, the sound of the lights can get bothersome for these children. A noise cancelling headphone or a small chewy chocolate can help them regulate such situations. Now we come to the most important problem these children face, especially when they are on long flights. The child can either have a meltdown or a tantrum. So what exactly is a meltdown? Meltdown is an intense reaction to an overwhelming situation which can result into negative behaviors such as screeching, screaming, crying uncontrollably, head hitting, banging their hands over the seats in front of them, hand flapping, etc. So now how exactly the airline crew can help when such situation arises? Firstly, they should be very empathetic to such people, to such families. The second thing is to offer help and ask how they can help in such situations. Third, there are simple things that can be used when such situation arises. The first thing is let the child move around a bit. Second thing is give them a favorite food to eat. The third thing is give them a weighted blanket or a weighted lap pad or a weighted jacket to calm themselves down. The fourth thing is they can be played a soft calming music on the noise cancelling headphones. The next thing is they can be given sensory toys. So sensory toys are basically soft squishy fidget toys which consist of the pop tubes, the pullable tubes, the squishy tubes, the small toys that make some small sounds that can be included in the sensory toys. Another important responsibility of the flight crew is to inform the fellow passengers who are obviously very upset and they get very inconvenient because of the screaming of the child, that the child is autism and this behavior is uncontrollable and they are trying the best to get the situation under control. So these children are medically advised to have particular type of diet which can be gluten free, casein free, ketogenic diets. The option can be made available during the time of ticket booking, but if not so, the crew should also be available to help in every way possible. These children also have difficulties with the toilet training. For example, they do not tell when they have to use the toilet. They can often pass their stools and urines in the diapers. When they have to go, they need special assistance as they are unable to clean themselves. These parents sometimes need help. So the crew can ask these parents if they want any kind of assistance, providing extra help in whatever way the parents require. So towards the end, during disembarkation, when they have to exit, they can be given priority exit, and also their luggage can be taken out on priority so that they don't have to wait on the airport for longer period of time again.
children on the autism spectrum sometimes have a meltdown while they are traveling. What can the parent do, and what can the airline staff do for this particular incident? As in, if the child has a meltdown, what are the things that can be done?
So there are two things, meltdown and a tantrum. So you need to first distinguish, is a child having a tantrum or is a child having a meltdown? Because tantrum is a behavioral issue and meltdown is more of sensory issue. If the child has a meltdown while travel, then is where you give them the sensory needs, the sensory support that they require, calming them down with the help of sensory toys, or giving them chewy tubes or fidget toys or whatever else they are comfortable with. Even a small, generally parents should carry a small blanket or a small squish toy that smells like their home. So the child has a the child is more comfortable in such situation. While on the airport, if they have meltdown, so that is when the sensory room comes into the picture. So the child can go and calm themselves down, help them regulate. So these are the few things that you can do when the child has a meltdown.
All right, thank you. And yes, Miss Malaika, what would you like to say about the meltdown situation of such children on the spectrum?
I think it's really important to understand why meltdowns happen. Again, we come back to the point about the needs not being met or feeling unsafe, or, you know, young people with neurodiversity can struggle with attachment difficulties, taking something away from them, or them feeling like they've been rejected, or the needs are not being met at that point in time, can lead to having meltdowns. There are different ways to manage these, and the parent would know they would have coping strategies or things that could help. So it can be anything close to using ear defenders or giving a young person space to pace it out, or it could be chewing on a lolly. You know, the tiniest of things make a massive difference to young people who are neurodiverse. But every young person has their own needs, and they would have their own coping strategies to manage their distress, and the parents would be really aware of that. So asking crew staff to ask the parents, is there any way, sometimes a change of face does help young people who struggle with meltdowns, to as to how they can support their children. That would be a benefit thing. Like Pooja said before, parents are the ones who know their children the best. The best people to ask is them. And if they're not able to support their children at that point in time, a change of face can help. But the small strategies is usually what they use to regulate when they're having meltdowns.
Great. Yes, that's true. And yes, Pooja, what would you like to say about this?
I just want to add on to what Malaika has said. I think the first thing is it's also really important to create a safe space. When a child is having a meltdown, they could get hurt, they could hurt someone else, they could hurt themselves. So it is important for us to create a safe space and a safe environment. While doing that, always ask the parent, is there something that we can do to help? Because as Malaika said, the parents will know what the coping strategies are for the child and what they would need to in order to help them self-regulate. And creating a safe environment, a safe space for that to happen is really important.
Now, I would just like to bring up another point. As we all know, airport in Dubai, they have already a lot of provisions for all these children who are on the autism spectrum. So, Rabab, could you just tell a little bit more about that? And then we would also like to connect back with Malaika and with Pooja to know what are the provisions that are available in England and in Kenya. So now let's talk to Rabab.
So like I mentioned, they have this card for people with determination. So it's like they have ease of access, they have supports from the airlines, from the ground staff. they help the family to make the process more easier, like help them prioritize, help in however way possible. If the parents have to go to use the washroom itself, they cannot leave this child alone. They are there to help in every way possible. In the laboratories and everything, if the parents have some difficulty, the laboratories are too small in the aircraft. They are allowed to use the laboratories in the first class or the business class for the child to be comfortable. So that way they are very helpful in every step, because autism spectrum disorder is a disability that is not seen, but their being awareness, they are very kind and generous towards such families and people.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So as we just got to know, there are a lot of guidelines and already a lot of help available in Dubai for these children who are on the spectrum. So Malaika, I would like to just know if there is any such provision in England as well.
To the best of my abilities, I don't think there's any specific provision that is made, but staff or individuals working within the travelling sector are aware of young people who might be neurodiverse and have disabilities. They possibly can have badges that say that my disability is invisible. So, please be patient. If a staff or crew member is informed that this young person has difficulties, I think they try their best to support, but as opposed to specific requirements in terms of young people with autism, that is necessarily not provisioned at this point in time.
Great. Thank you so much, Malaika. Pooja, would you like to just give us some information about Kenya?
So at this point in time, I'm also not aware of any provisions for the hidden disability. There are provisions for physical disabilities, but in terms of autism and neurodiverse people, I'm not aware of any provisions. However, I do know that the crew is very willing to hear, willing to listen, and willing to help. So it would require communication. We are dealing with people at the end of the day, and they can hear us and they can hear our needs and help in ways that is feasible for them and the airline as well.
Great. So I would just like to ask you, Pooja, so as this video and this message is going to go across to all the airlines, what is the one message that you would like to spread and give it to the airlines?
I would really like to spread the word about awareness and acceptance. When we know about something, we are more willing to understand and willing to accommodate and help out. So it's important to know what autism entails, what neurodiversity entails. And when it comes to traveling, again, like I mentioned, this is teamwork. It takes everyone involved to make this a special experience. And that cooperation, that willingness to listen, that willingness to understand can take everyone a really, really long way. So it would be nice if everyone was on board just to listen and just to understand and accept.
Excellent. Thank you so much, all of you. All right. Malaika, so what is that one message that you would like to give to all the airlines?
I think it's about being open to learn. It's about accepting that individuals who are neurodiverse are not very different than us. All they have is just different needs, like we all have different needs. And it's just about making them a part of our community so that they do not have to feel like they're excluded from it. It's about including people. Because the label itself makes things really, really hard for them. So offering them a bit of support, offering them that they need something, that people are here to help them, and that, we're all in this together. I think that's the most important thing being able to feel part of something and not excluded from it. Well, that's it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Malaika. And yes, Ms. Rabab, what is that one message you would like to spread?
I believe that airlines should be more empathetic towards these families, and they should help providing all the support and ready to accept however the child's condition is, because each one has that right to travel, each one has to get that equal opportunity, and there should not be any differentiation between people who travel.
All right. One more question I would like to ask. Is there any message that you would like to give the parents who are traveling long distance? So what is that message that you would like to give to the parents? Because even they play an important role. Yes, Pooja.
For parents, I think first they need to know that this is not impossible. It is a task that is doable. It might be a bit of a process to start with, but it would require the preparation. So as I talked about, the initial preparation prior to travel, find out about the airlines that are supportive, create the social stories, talk to your child. It's really, really important to talk to your child and talk to them properly, because you might feel that they're not understanding, but actually they take in way more than we assume. So talking to them, preparing them, speaking with the flight crew. You don't know who's going to be helpful out there, and it's good to have all your resources available. Your own preparation, doing your research on how to make sure your child's going to be comfortable during the flight is important as well. There is nobody who knows your child like you do. A parent is the expert on their child. So you know your child's needs, and you know how to make sure that they're okay. And do not aim to make sure that your child is okay, because that is who a parent is. You're looking after your child. So don't feel ashamed about what you have to do. Don't feel afraid of sticking up for your child. You're the bravest person out there for your child. And just preparation is important, one step at a time, and everything is possible.
Great. Thank you so much. Yes, Malaika, that one message you would like to give to parents?
I think it's very similar to what Pooja said, but I think parents find it very, very hard to communicate that their their children or their young people have autism or are neurodiverse, because they're so scared of feeling targeted. But I think the only way a society can learn about difficulties is if they know about it. And I would really encourage parents to ask for support and tell people, and make people more aware that these difficulties do exist, and it can be hard, but they are actually manageable. And I think it's about making people aware around them rather than holding it down, because they're so scared of being targeted. The more people know about it, the more these young people and their families can feel supported within the community, and everything starts from home. So if we start there, we can make the community a better place.
Great, great. Thank you so much, Malaika. And yes, Ms. Rabab.
So I agree with Malaika and Pooja completely. The one thing that just to add in this thing is, unless you communicate, the person in front of you wouldn't know. You have to be more open, more accepting, and spreading awareness about your child, about the condition, so that the person is going to help you, because no one is going to deny helping you. But the thing is, unless you tell them, they will not know. So awareness and accepting your child, I think that is more important, however it is.
So what we understand from this is, all of these situations, if we all work together towards this, we all can, create a very friendly environment for the child and avoid such situations as well in the first place. On behalf of all the families of children on the autism spectrum, we from Autism Connect would like to thank Pooja from Kenya, Malaika from England, and Rabab from Dubai to be with us here today and share their valuable information. We would really hope that the senior management of all the airlines pass on this information to their entire crew and make these suggestions as a part of their operational protocol. This will make a big difference to the quality of air travel of the children on the autism spectrum.